Maya Reynolds stands frozen in the corporate boardroom as 20 executives from Airline stare in disbelief. The $400 million contract they'd spent months negotiating has just been torn to pieces before their eyes. "You treated my wife, an infant son, like they weren't human," her husband Marcus says, voice eerily calm while revealing footage on the boardroom screen. The Skyline CEO's face drains of color as the video shows a flight attendant smirking while refusing to help. Maya with her crying baby, whispering something that makes the surrounding passengers gasp in horror. How far would you go to fight for justice when the system is designed to break you? Before we begin this shocking true story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you believe in standing up for justice and human dignity, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on more powerful stories that expose the truth about discrimination happening every day in America. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode that could change how you see the world around you. Maya Reynolds wasn't just any surgeon. She was one of Chicago Memorial's most brilliant neurosurgeons, saving lives with her steady hands and razor-sharp mind. At 34, she had everything she could have dreamed of: a thriving career, a beautiful home in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood, and most importantly, a loving family. Her husband Marcus Reynolds, 36, had built Reynolds Innovations from a startup in their garage to a tech powerhouse specializing in artificial intelligence and data security systems. Their greatest joy came just 4 months ago with the birth of their son Elijah, whose contagious smile could melt even the iciest heart. Their 3-story brownstone was filled with photos documenting their journey together. Meeting at Harvard, where Maya was a pre-med student and Marcus was completing his master's in computer science, their wedding in Martha's Vineyard, their humanitarian trip to Kenya where they helped build a school, and now, their most precious photos featured tiny Elijah. The Reynolds family represented Black excellence and the American dream realized through hard work and determination. "I wish you didn't have to go alone," Marcus said, gently rocking Elijah while Maya packed her suitcase for Atlanta. "I should be there with you both." Maya zipped her carry-on bag and sighed. "I know, but Grandma Josephine might not have much time left. The doctors say her condition is deteriorating rapidly. I need to see her, and I want her to meet Elijah before." Her voice trailed off, unwilling to finish the painful thought. Marcus nodded, understanding the urgency. "I'll wrap up these contract negotiations with Skyline as quickly as possible and join you there. This deal is massive for us, babe. $400 million to overhaul their entire passenger data system. The biggest contract in company history," Maya smiled, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I'm so proud of you. We'll be fine for a day or two until you can join us." What Maya didn't say was how anxious she felt about traveling alone with Elijah. It would be their first flight together without Marcus, and while she had performed brain surgeries that required 16 straight hours of concentration, the thought of managing a fussy infant on a packed flight filled her with a different kind of dread. The next morning, Marcus drove them to O'Hare International Airport, helped her check the mountain of baby supplies required for even the shortest trip with an infant, and kissed them goodbye at the security checkpoint. "Text me when you board, and when you land," he reminded her, reluctant to leave. "I love you both so much." "We love you too," Maya said, adjusting Elijah in his baby carrier. "Now go close that deal so you can join us soon." As Marcus walked away, Maya wheeled her carry-on toward the Skyline Airlines check-in counter, Elijah securely strapped to her chest. She noticed immediately how the white customer service agent's smile faded slightly upon seeing her approach. Despite Maya's elegant appearance in designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, and minimal gold jewelry, the agent's eyes narrowed with subtle suspicion. "Ticket and ID," the agent demanded without the courtesy greeting she'd offered to previous passengers. Maya handed over the documents along with Elijah's birth certificate. The agent scrutinized them with unnecessary thoroughness, glancing repeatedly between Maya's face and her ID as if suspecting forgery. Meanwhile, a white couple with a baby was quickly processed at the next counter over with friendly chit-chat. "Is there a problem?" Maya finally asked when the agent called over a supervisor to verify something. "Just doing my job, ma'am," the agent replied coldly. After several more minutes, she reluctantly issued the boarding passes. Gate C-22. Relief washed over Maya as she cleared the check-in hurdle, but it was short-lived. At the security checkpoint, despite her TSA pre-checks, status, a gate agent with Reynolds pinned to his uniform approached her. "Ma'am, you've been randomly selected for additional screening," he announced loudly, drawing attention from nearby travelers. "Random? I have pre-check," Maya objected, glancing at the other pre-check passengers who were proceeding without hassle. None of them looked like her. "It's completely random, ma'am," the agent insisted with unconvincing emphasis. "I'll need you to step aside and open all your bags. The baby supplies will need to be screened separately." As Maya struggled to maintain her composure while unpacking Elijah's formula, diapers, and clothes under the scrutinizing gaze of security personnel, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was nothing random about this selection at all. This was just the beginning of what would become the most horrific travel experience of her life, one that would eventually bring a corporate giant to its knees and change airline policy forever. Boarding Skyline Airlines Flight 2187 to Atlanta should have been routine, but Maya immediately sensed the tension as she stepped onto the aircraft with 4-month-old Elijah strapped to her chest. The senior flight attendant standing at the entrance, a blonde woman in her 50s with an immaculately pressed uniform and a nameplate reading Victoria Whitehall, greeted white passengers with warm smiles and friendly conversation. When Maya approached, Victoria's smile vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped nod and eyes that seemed to say, "You don't belong here." "Excuse me," Maya said politely. "Could you please help me find storage for the baby bag? It has essential items I might need during the flight." Victoria glanced at Maya with undisguised annoyance. "You'll have to manage that yourself. I need to continue the boarding process." She immediately turned her attention to the white businessman behind Maya. "Good morning, sir. First class is to your right. Can I help you with your briefcase?" Struggling to maneuver the diaper bag while keeping Elijah secure, Maya made her way to seat 14C, an aisle seat she'd specifically selected for easier access during the flight. As she settled in, she noticed the disapproving glances from surrounding passengers, their expressions changing from neutral to concerned at the sight of a baby. An older white woman across the aisle audibly sighed and muttered something about peaceful flights and consideration for others. "He's usually very good on flights," Maya offered with an apologetic smile, though she had no idea if this was true for Elijah's first flight. The woman turned away without acknowledging her. As the boarding completed and the safety demonstration began, Elijah remained mercifully quiet, entranced by the new environment and sounds. Maya silently thanked whatever forces were keeping him content, hoping this calm would last the 2-hour flight to Atlanta. Her hope was short-lived. 20 minutes after takeoff, Elijah began fussing. Maya recognized his hungry cries and reached for the pre-made formula in her bag, only to realize it needed warming. She pressed the call button, waiting patiently for assistance. Minutes passed. The call light remained unanswered while Victoria and another flight attendant served drinks to first-class passengers. Elijah's cries intensified, his tiny face reddening with effort. Maya pressed the call button again, earning dirty looks from nearby passengers. After 5 more minutes, Victoria finally approached, conspicuously pressing the button to turn off the call light before addressing Maya. "Yes?" Her tone conveyed clear irritation. "I'm sorry to bother you, but could I please get some warm water for my baby's formula? He's hungry and getting upset." Maya kept her voice professional and calm, the same tone she used when requesting instruments in the operating room. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "We're in the middle of beverage service. You'll have to wait." "He's just a baby," Maya explained, feeling Elijah's cries vibrating against her chest. "He doesn't understand waiting. It would only take a moment to—" "I said you'll have to wait," Victoria cut her off, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "There are other passengers with needs too." As Victoria walked away, Maya noticed her stop 3 rows ahead, where a white mother with a toddler was sitting. Without being asked, Victoria leaned down with a smile. "Can I get anything for your little one? Some juice, perhaps?" The disparity was so blatant that Maya felt her cheeks burn with humiliation and anger. Elijah's cries grew louder, drawing hostile stares from surrounding passengers. An Asian American flight attendant named Jessica Chen, according to her nameplate, passed by looking sympathetic, but quickly averted her eyes when Maya tried to catch her attention. After 20 excruciating minutes, Victoria returned with the drink cart. Maya, desperate by now with Elijah screaming inconsolably, reached out gently to touch Victoria's elbow. "Please, I really need warm water for his formula." Victoria jerked, her arm away as if burned. "Do not touch me," she hissed. Then, her voice rising to be heard by surrounding passengers, she added, "Ma'am, you need to control that child, or we may have to consider your suitability for future flights." The cabin grew quiet except for Elijah's cries, passengers now openly staring at the confrontation. Maya felt tears stinging her eyes but refused to let them fall. "My baby is hungry. All I'm asking for is warm water to make his formula. It's a basic human need." Victoria leaned closer, her perfectly lipsticked mouth curling into a sneer. "Maybe you should have thought about that before bringing him on board," she whispered, then added something so quiet that only Maya and the passengers in the immediate vicinity could hear it. Gasps erupted from those close enough to catch Victoria's words. A teenage girl in the row behind Maya's eyes widened in shock as she discreetly raised her phone, the camera app open and recording. Jessica Chen, restocking napkins nearby, froze momentarily, her face registering horror before she quickly composed herself and hurried toward the back galley. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's true colors shocked you to your core? Comment number 1 if you've ever witnessed blatant discrimination like what Maya experienced, or number 2 if you've been blessed enough to never see such cruelty. Don't forget to hit like if you believe every human deserves basic dignity and respect, regardless of their skin color. Subscribe now to follow Maya's journey through this nightmare and see how she and Marcus fight back against this injustice. What would you do if you were in Maya's position? How far would you go to stand up for yourself when the world seems determined to push you down? Keep watching to see how one family refused to be silenced in the face of systemic racism. Throughout the remainder of the flight, Maya sat in stunned silence, tears occasionally slipping down her cheeks as she cradled Elijah, who had eventually cried himself to exhaustion. The racial slur Victoria had whispered replayed in her mind, searing itself into her memory. Never in her professional career, even as the only black female neurosurgeon in her department, had she been so openly degraded. She'd faced subtle discrimination, certainly, but this naked hatred left her feeling violated and utterly alone at 35,000 feet. Behind her, 16-year-old Zoe Parker couldn't believe what she'd witnessed. The high school junior had been traveling to visit her grandparents when she captured Victoria's shocking behavior on video. Throughout the flight, she kept her phone ready, documenting several more instances of Victoria's dismissive treatment toward Maya while providing preferential service to white passengers. Zoe, herself a young activist in her Portland high school, knew exactly what she was recording. Not an isolated incident, but evidence of the systemic racism many pretended didn't exist in post-racial America. When the plane finally touched down at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, Maya quickly gathered her belongings, eager to escape the hostile environment. Elijah, sensing his mother's distress, remained uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes wide and watchful. As passengers disembarked, several avoided making eye contact with Maya, while others offered sympathetic glances, too afraid or indifferent to have intervened when it mattered. The moment she reached the jet bridge, Maya pulled out her phone, with trembling hands, and called Marcus. "Maya, how was the flight? Did you land okay?" His voice, warm and concerned, broke the emotional dam she'd built throughout the ordeal. "Marcus," she whispered, trying to keep her voice from breaking as she navigated the crowded terminal. "It was horrible. The flight attendant. Maya couldn't bring herself to repeat the slur. "What happened?" Marcus's tone immediately shifted from concern to protective alarm. "Are you and Elijah okay?" Maya recounted the ordeal in clinical detail, the same way she would describe a complicated surgery, trying to distance herself from the emotional impact. By the time she finished, Marcus's breathing had become heavy with controlled fury. "Document everything," he instructed firmly. "Names, times, what was said. I want you to email it to yourself and to me immediately." This isn't going away, Maya. I promise you that. As Maya waited at baggage claim, still shaken, a figure approached from her peripheral vision. It was Zoe, the teenager from the flight, holding her phone nervously. "Excuse me, ma'am," Zoe said tentatively. "I recorded what happened on the flight. What that flight attendant did to you. It wasn't right. I got it all, including what she whispered to you." Maya stared at the girl, momentarily speechless. "You recorded it?" Zoe nodded, turning her phone screen toward Maya. "I can send it to you. I think people need to see this." With Maya's permission, Zoe transferred the video files and shared her contact information. "My parents are civil rights attorneys," she explained. "They always taught me to document injustice when I see it." Within hours of landing, as Maya tried to settle into her mother's Atlanta home and focus on her dying grandmother, the video began its journey across the internet. Zoe had posted an edited version to her social media accounts with the caption, "Watch how Skyline Airlines treats a black mother and her baby. This needs to stop. Skyline racism, Chaka flying while black." The video exploded across platforms, first gaining traction among social justice accounts, then breaking into mainstream awareness, as celebrities and influencers shared it with their millions of followers. By evening, major news networks were running segments analyzing the footage, with commentators debating whether Victoria's actions constituted discrimination or were justified by airline protocol. Skyline Airlines' social media team scrambled to contain the damage, issuing a generic statement. "Skyline Airlines is aware of a video circulating online regarding an interaction between our crew member and a passenger. We take these matters seriously and are investigating the incident. Skyline does not condone discrimination of any kind." The corporate response only fueled greater outrage, with the hashtag #OscarsSkylineRacism trending nationwide. Former passengers began sharing their own stories of discrimination on Skyline flights, creating a damning pattern that suggested Maya's experience was far from isolated. Marcus, watching the situation unfold from Chicago while finalizing the contract negotiations, immediately contacted Skyline's executive team. "I need to speak with Richard Blackwell, now," he demanded to the administrative assistant who answered his call. "Mr. Blackwell is in meetings all afternoon regarding the current situation," the assistant replied hesitantly. "Tell him, Marcus, Reynolds is calling about both the current situation and the $400 million contract his company is about to sign with mine. I guarantee he'll want to take this call." While Marcus fought from Chicago, Maya faced a different battle in Atlanta. As the video gained millions of views, trolls began attacking her online, questioning her character and even her credentials. Anonymous accounts claimed she had been belligerent on the flight, that she had played the race card to get attention. Most disturbingly, someone had dug up her professional information and was spreading lies about her medical competence. Dr. Maya Reynolds claims discrimination, but has anyone checked her medical record? How many patients has she really killed? Read one particularly vicious post that was gaining traction in certain corners of the internet. Maya, exhausted from the flight, the emotional trauma, and caring for Elijah while trying to spend precious time with her grandmother, found herself in the nightmarish position of watching her hard-earned reputation being dismantled online in real time. When her hospital administrator called to check in about the online situation, Maya realized with horror that the attack on her professional standing had already reached her workplace. "Maya," Marcus said during their evening video call, his face grim with determination, "this isn't just about one racist flight attendant anymore. The way they're coming after you, someone's orchestrating this, and I think I know who." In the plush executive boardroom on the top floor of Skyline Airlines' Chicago headquarters, CEO Richard Blackwell slammed his fist on the polished mahogany table. The 60-year-old executive, known for building Skyline from a regional carrier into the nation's fourth-largest airline, was not accustomed to losing control of a narrative. With steel gray hair and a permanent tan from his frequent golfing trips with political figures, Blackwell had navigated the company through economic downturns, fuel crises, and union disputes. But this viral video threatened something he valued above all: his company's stock price and his own legacy. How did we let a simple customer service incident turn into this dumpster fire? He demanded, glaring at the nervous faces of his executive team. On the wall-mounted screen behind him, social media metrics showed skyline racism continuing to trend, with the video of flight attendant Victoria Whitehall now viewed over 20 million times. "Sir, we've issued the standard statement about investigating the incident," offered Philip Morris, the airline's head of public relations, a man whose primary qualifications seemed to be his ability to spin disaster into mere inconvenience. "A standard statement?" Blackwell's voice dropped dangerously low. "There's nothing standard about this situation. Do you realize who that woman's husband is? Marcus Reynolds, the same Marcus Reynolds whose company is about to sign a $400 million contract to overhaul our entire passenger data system." The room fell silent as the executives processed this connection. Melissa Jenkins, Skyline's chief legal officer, cleared her throat. "Richard, if I may, this complicates things significantly. If we admit fault or fire Victoria, it could be seen as an admission of liability in any potential lawsuit. On the other hand, the Reynolds connection means we can't just weather the storm as usual." Blackwell paced the room, mind racing through scenarios. "This video makes us look terrible, but I refuse to let Skyline be defined by this incident. We need to shift the narrative." He stopped suddenly, turning to his team with cold determination. "What do we know about this Dr. Maya Reynolds?" Within hours, Skyline had engaged Crisis Control, an elite reputation management firm with questionable ethics but undeniable results. Their speciality: reframing public narratives by subtly discrediting accusers. Victoria Whitehall was quietly moved to administrative leave with full pay and benefits, a far cry from termination. The official reason given was to facilitate a thorough investigation, but the message to employees was clear: protect the company at all costs. Crisis Control immediately deployed their arsenal of tactics. First, they created dozens of seemingly unrelated social media accounts to question Maya's character and credibility. Just asking questions became their weapon of choice. Why was her baby crying the whole flight? Don't surgeons know how to prepare before travel? Seems convenient this happens right before her husband's company signs a huge contract. Next came the anonymous insider leaks to sympathetic media outlets. Maya had allegedly been aggressive toward the flight crew. She had refused to comply with standard procedures. She had a history of complaints against service providers, who were just doing their jobs. None of these claims had any basis in reality, but in the chaos of viral outrage, truth became malleable. Crisis Control understood that some people would believe anything that confirmed their biases about playing the race card or professional victims. Their most insidious move came when they began targeting Maya's professional reputation. Calls started coming into Chicago Memorial Hospital, questioning Dr. Reynolds' surgical competence. The hospital's online review pages were flooded with one-star reviews from patients who had never been under her care. Someone even filed a medical board complaint based on entirely fabricated allegations. The hospital administration, initially supportive, began distancing themselves from the controversy. "Dr. Reynolds is a valued member of our surgical team," read their cautious statement, "but the views and experiences she has shared are her own and do not represent Chicago Memorial Hospital." Maya, exhausted from caring for Elijah and spending time with her dying grandmother, watched in horror as her professional reputation was being systematically dismantled. "I don't understand," she told Marcus during a late-night call. "How can they get away with these lies? Everyone who knows me knows these allegations are absurd." "Because they're not trying to convince people who know you," Marcus explained grimly. "They're creating doubt in the minds of the public and your colleagues. It's a classic smear campaign. They're making the controversy about you, not about what their employee did." The most alarming development came when Maya received a call from a former patient, an elderly woman for whom she had successfully removed a life-threatening brain tumor 2 years earlier. "Dr. Reynolds," the woman said hesitantly, "I received the strangest call today. Someone claiming to be from a patient advocacy group offered me $5,000 to do an interview about problems with my surgery. They specifically asked if I had any complaints about you and suggested some things I could say. When I told them you saved my life and I had nothing but gratitude, they hung up. Maya was speechless. The attack had escalated from online trolling to actively bribing her patients to lie about her medical care. This went beyond reputation management. It was a deliberate attempt to destroy her career. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Marcus Reynolds was using his own tech expertise to trace the coordinated attack. As the founder of a cybersecurity company, he had resources most people didn't. What he discovered sent a chill down his spine. "I've got something," he told his chief security officer, Raj Patel, as they analyzed the online campaign against Maya. All these supposedly random social media accounts attacking Maya, they're being managed by the same IP addresses, and those addresses trace back to servers owned by Crisis Control. "The reputation management firm?" Raj asked, surprised. "Yes, and guess who just hired them as an independent consultant for a sensitive matter?" Marcus pulled up an internal email that had been forwarded to him by a whistleblower within Skyline. Skyline Airlines, specifically authorized by CEO Richard Blackwell himself. Marcus stared at the evidence on his screen, his hands curling into fists. They're not just refusing to address what happened to Maya, they're actively trying to destroy her to protect themselves. He stood up, determination hardening his features. "Get the team together. If Richard Blackwell wants to play dirty, he's about to learn he picked a fight with the wrong family." Marcus Reynolds had built his reputation on being 2 steps ahead of digital threats. Reynolds Innovations specialized in cybersecurity and data protection systems that safeguarded everything from bank accounts to national infrastructure. Now, he would apply those same skills to protect his family from Skyline's coordinated attack. The battle had shifted from a single incident of discrimination to a corporate Goliath, trying to crush individual truth-tellers through their massive resources and influence. "Assemble the emergency response team," Marcus instructed his operations director. "I want our best digital forensics experts working around the clock. Every fake account, every planted story, every fabricated review. I want to know who created it, when, and where the orders came from." Within hours, Marcus had transformed a conference room at Reynolds Innovations into a war room. Screens displayed real-time tracking of the social media campaign against Maya, identifying patterns and coordination that proved this was no organic backlash, but a sophisticated astroturfing operation. "Here's what we found," said Aisha Johnson, Marcus's head of digital forensics, pointing to a complex network diagram on the main screen. Over 200 seemingly unrelated accounts began posting negative content about Maya within 6 hours of the video going viral. They all follow similar talking points, and 43% of them were created in the last week. "Can we prove they're connected to Crisis Control?" Marcus asked. Aisha smiled grimly. "Better than that. We've traced the login locations. Many use the same VPN services, but they got sloppy. Several accounts were accessed directly from Crisis Control's headquarters in New York. And look at this email we intercepted." She pulled up a message showing detailed talking points being distributed to paid social media operatives, complete with Skyline Airlines in the email chain. Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowed in determination. "We've got them. Now we fight back." The Reynolds counteroffensive began with Maya giving a powerful exclusive interview to a respected television journalist. Speaking with quiet dignity while holding Elijah, she recounted her experience with clear-eyed precision. "I'm not speaking out just for myself," she explained, her voice steady. "I'm speaking for every person who has been made to feel less than human because of the color of their skin. For every mother who has been denied basic compassion. For every professional whose credentials and character have been questioned based on prejudice rather than performance." The interview went viral, generating even more support than the original incident. Maya's composed demeanor and articulate description of events stood in stark contrast to Skyline's corporate stonewalling and crisis management tactics. Meanwhile, Marcus's team began systematically exposing Crisis Control's network of fake accounts, publishing evidence of the coordinated smear campaign. They created a website called SkylineTruth.com that documented the airline's history of discrimination complaints, many of which had been quietly settled with non-disclosure agreements. The most damaging blow came when Jessica Chen, The flight attendant who had witnessed Victoria's behavior made the courageous decision to speak out. Despite the risk to her 12-year career at Skyline, she could no longer remain silent. What happened to Dr. Reynolds was not an isolated incident, Jessica revealed in her own interview. There's a culture of discrimination that management ignores or even encourages. I've documented dozens of similar incidents over my years with the company, reported them through proper channels, and watched them get buried. Jessica provided internal emails showing how discrimination complaints were routinely dismissed or minimized. More current and former Skyline employees, emboldened by her example, began sharing their own stories, creating a damning pattern that could no longer be dismissed as isolated incidents. Public pressure mounted. Skyline stock dropped 15% in 3 days. Corporate partners began quietly distancing themselves from the airline. Several celebrities and influencers publicly canceled their Skyline partnerships. Boycott. Campaigns gained traction across social media platforms and in mainstream discourse. Behind closed doors, Skyline's board members began pressuring CEO Richard Blackwell to resolve the situation. The company's quarterly earnings call was approaching, and investors were growing nervous about the controversy's impact on the bottom line. "Richard, this has gone far enough," said Eleanor Hamilton, the longest-serving board member, during an emergency meeting. "The story isn't going away. If anything, it's growing. We need to settle with the Reynolds family and move on." Blackwell, however, refused to concede defeat. Settle and admit guilt? Absolutely not. This will blow over like everything else. Besides, I have leverage they don't know about yet. That leverage came in the form of a private settlement offer delivered to Maya and Marcus. $2 million in exchange for their silence, complete with a non-disclosure agreement so restrictive it would prevent them from ever discussing the incident or Skyline's response. When their attorney presented the offer, Maya and Marcus exchanged a look of shared determination. "They think this is about money," Maya said, shaking her head in disbelief. "They don't understand who they're dealing with," Marcus agreed, taking her hand. "Tell Skyline we don't want their money. We want accountability. We want policy changes. We want a public apology to everyone who has experienced discrimination on their airline. And," Maya added firmly, "we want Victoria Whitehall terminated and all executives who participated in the smear campaign held responsible." The attorney nodded, making notes. "They won't agree to these terms easily. You understand that, right? This fight could get uglier." Marcus looked at Maya, then at Elijah sleeping peacefully in his crib nearby. "Some fights are worth having, no matter how ugly they get. This is one of them. Have you ever stood up against a powerful entity that tried to silence you? Comment number 1 if you believe corporations should be held accountable for discrimination, or number 2 if you think Maya and Marcus should have taken the settlement money. Hit that like button if you admire people who refuse to be bought off when fighting for justice, and subscribe to see how this battle escalates to levels no one could have predicted. What would you do if you were offered millions to stay quiet about injustice? How far would you go to ensure systemic change rather than a one-time payoff? Stay tuned to see the shocking lengths Skyline will go to protect their reputation and the unexpected allies who will join the Reynolds family in their fight. The rejection of Skyline's settlement offer marked a critical turning point in what the media now called the Reynolds versus Skyline battle. What had begun as discrimination on a flight had escalated into a full-blown corporate war, with Richard Blackwell determined to make an example of the couple who dared to challenge his company's power. The first warning sign came in the form of a comment on Maya's professional social media profile. "We know where you live. Back off or else." She initially dismissed it as a random troll, but within days, similar messages flooded her inbox across multiple platforms. Some contained specific details about their Chicago home that weren't publicly available. "Marcus, look at this," Maya said one evening, showing him a particularly disturbing message that mentioned Elijah by name. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her phone. Marcus immediately contacted their home security company to increase protection measures. He was reviewing the new security protocols when a colleague called with alarming news. "Someone just published your home address on 3 different extremist forums," his head of security reported. They're framing you as anti-American and suggesting you're making up racism to damage a patriotic American company. That night, the first brick came through their living room window, narrowly missing Maya as she nursed Elijah. The note attached read, "Race baiters die." Police responded but seemed skeptical of any connection to the Skyline controversy. Probably just random vandalism, the officer suggested, despite the explicit note. "We'll file a report, but don't expect much." Within hours, Marcus made arrangements to move his family to a secure apartment building with 24-hour security. As they packed essential belongings, Maya received a call from her hospital administrator. "Maya, I'm calling because we've received over 30 threatening phone calls today targeting you," he explained, sounding genuinely concerned. "They're threatening to picket the hospital if we don't deal with the problem, doctor. We've increased security, but I wanted you to be aware." The threats were taking a professional toll as well. Maya's surgical schedule had been cleared for security reasons, effectively preventing her from practicing medicine. Colleagues who had once been friendly now kept their distance, afraid of being caught in the crossfire of controversy. Meanwhile, Marcus discovered that the intimidation tactics extended to his business. During a call with the CEO of Tech Forward, a longtime client, Marcus learned that Skyline's influence reached further than he'd imagined. "I'm sorry, Marcus, but we're going to have to put our contract renewal on hold," the CEO said awkwardly. "We received some concerning information about potential instability at Reynolds Innovations." "What concerning information?" Marcus pressed. After some hesitation, the CEO admitted, "Richard Blackwell reached out personally. He suggested your company might be facing regulatory issues soon. We can't risk the association if that's true." By the end of the week, Reynolds Innovations had lost a $5 million contract with another client who cited similar concerns about stability. It became clear that Blackwell was leveraging his extensive network to make Marcus's company toxic to potential business partners. The most frightening escalation came when Maya received a call from Little Explorers, the exclusive daycare center where Elijah was enrolled for future care. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm calling because we've received several threatening messages regarding your family," the director explained, her voice tense with controlled fear. "Someone left photographs of our staff and suggested they would be watching the children. We've contacted law enforcement, but under the circumstances, we think it would be safer for everyone if you made alternative arrangements for Elijah." Maya sat down heavily, the phone nearly slipping from her fingers. They're threatening a daycare center with innocent children? That evening, as Maya and Marcus discussed their options in their temporary apartment, Marcus noticed something odd about his phone. Apps were opening spontaneously. The camera indicator light flashed without being activated, and the battery was draining unusually quickly. His cybersecurity instincts kicked in immediately. "Don't say anything important," he whispered to Maya, writing on a notepad instead. "I think our phones are compromised." He took both their phones into the bathroom, turned on the shower to mask any sound, and performed a quick diagnostic using specialized equipment he'd brought from his office. The results confirmed his suspicions. Both devices had been infected, with sophisticated spyware that could activate microphones and cameras remotely. Taking no chances, Marcus swept the apartment as well, discovering 3 listening devices, one in the living room light fixture, another in their bedroom alarm clock, and a third in Elijah's baby monitor. The invasion of their privacy was complete and professional. This was no amateur operation. "Private investigators," Marcus concluded grimly after disposing of the devices. "High-end ones with serious resources, the kind that former intelligence operatives run." "Who would go this far?" Maya asked, cradling Elijah protectively. "Someone who stands to lose hundreds of millions of dollars and whose ego can't handle being challenged," Marcus replied. "Richard Blackwell is sending a message. He can reach us anywhere, know everything we say and do, and make our lives unbearable until we give up." Instead of intimidating them into silence, however, the escalation only strengthened their resolve. As Maya looked down at her sleeping son, she made a decision. "They think they can scare us away by threatening our safety, our reputations, our livelihoods," she said quietly, but with steel in her voice. But they've miscalculated. They've given us nothing left to lose, and that makes us more dangerous, not less. Marcus nodded, his expression hardening with determination. If Blackwell wants total war, then that's exactly what he'll get. The psychological weight of being under constant siege began to take its toll on Maya and Marcus. What had started as a fight for justice had transformed into a daily battle for survival, draining their energy and testing the limits of their resilience. For Maya, the professional consequences were devastating. Despite her impeccable surgical record, the hospital board placed her on administrative leave after receiving threats to boycott the institution. The official reason given was to ensure patient and staff safety, but the message was clear. Maya had become a liability. 15 years of education, thousands of successful surgeries, lives saved that would have been lost without my skills, Maya said bitterly one morning, staring at her unused surgical scrubs. And none of it matters because standing up against racism is too controversial. The lack of purpose that had defined her life created a void that anxiety quickly filled. She began experiencing panic attacks, her heart racing unexpectedly, while performing simple tasks. Sleep became elusive, with nightmares of Victoria Whitehall's sneering face waiting whenever she closed her eyes. Most disturbing were the intrusive thoughts questioning her own worth, the insidious effect of having her identity as a respected surgeon stripped away. Marcus watched his normally confident, brilliant wife retreat into herself with growing alarm. His own battles left him little emotional energy to provide the support she desperately needed. Reynolds Innovations was hemorrhaging clients, with 3 major contracts canceled in rapid succession after concerns about leadership stability were raised. The $400 million Skyline deal that had once represented the company's crowning achievement now seemed like a cruel joke. Obsessed with protecting his family, Marcus converted their temporary apartment into a digital fortress, sweeping for surveillance devices multiple times daily and implementing security measures that bordered on paranoia. He slept fitfully, jolting, awake at the slightest noise, convinced that Blackwell's hired intimidators had found them again. Their marriage, once a source of strength and joy, began showing cracks under the relentless pressure. Conversations devolved into terse exchanges about security concerns or updates on the legal battle. Intimate moments disappeared, replaced by exhausted collapses into separate sleep. Even their shared parenting of Elijah, previously a source of connection, became a series of handoffs as each took shifts watching their son while the other dealt with the latest crisis. "When does it end, Marcus?" Maya asked during a rare moment of vulnerable conversation. "How much more can we lose before we admit that they're too powerful to fight?" Marcus had no answer that didn't sound like empty optimism. The truth was, he had begun to question their decision to refuse the settlement. Not because he believed they were wrong, but because he hadn't anticipated the sheer ruthlessness of their opponent. Richard Blackwell wasn't fighting a public relations battle. He was systematically dismantling their lives with the precision of a corporate raider breaking up a company. The situation with Maya's grandmother added another layer of pain. Josephine. Thompson's condition had deteriorated rapidly, yet Maya couldn't spend the time she wanted at her bedside. The constant legal consultations, security concerns, and media management left only brief windows to visit the woman who had helped raise her. Each time Josephine seemed more diminished, her once sharp mind increasingly confused by the controversy surrounding her granddaughter. "Why are those people saying such terrible things about you on television?" Josephine asked during one visit, her frail hand gripping Maya's with surprising strength. "You've always been a good girl, a healer." "It's complicated, Grandma," Maya replied, fighting back tears. "But don't worry about that, I'm here now." But she wasn't really there, not fully. Part of her remained trapped in the battle, checking her phone for updates from their lawyer, scanning the room for potential recording devices, planning her response to the latest accusation. The precious final moments with her grandmother were tainted by the inescapable shadow of the fight. Meanwhile, the one bright spot, Jessica Chen's courageous testimony supporting Maya's account, turned dark when Jessica's home was vandalized with racist graffiti. The message "traitor" was spray-painted across her garage door, along with threats too vile to repeat. Like Maya and Marcus, Jessica discovered listening devices in her home, confirming that Skyline's surveillance operation extended to anyone who dared support the Reynolds family. The teenager who had recorded the original video, Zoe Parker, faced her own backlash. Her social media accounts were flooded with abuse, and her school received a bomb threat that forced an evacuation. Though no explosive device was found, the message was clear. Supporting the Reynolds family came with consequences. The cumulative stress finally manifested physically for Maya during a meeting with their legal team. As they discussed the latest affidavit from a former Skyline employee supporting their case, Maya suddenly felt a crushing pain in her chest. The room began spinning, her vision tunneled, and she collapsed before Marcus could reach her. The emergency room doctor diagnosed a severe panic attack, though tests were run to rule out more serious conditions. As Maya lay in the hospital bed, the irony wasn't lost on her. She had gone from saving lives in this very hospital to becoming a patient, her body betraying her under the weight of the fight. Marcus sat beside her bed, holding her hand and fighting his own crushing guilt. "This is my fault," he whispered. "I pushed us to fight when we should have protected our peace." Maya squeezed his hand weakly. "We both chose this, but I don't know if I have the strength to keep going." For the first time since the ordeal began, they seriously discussed surrendering, taking whatever settlement Skyline offered, signing the non-disclosure agreement, and attempting to rebuild their shattered lives away from Chicago, perhaps even outside the country. The principles that had seemed so worth fighting for now felt distant compared to the immediate need to stop the bleeding of their personal and professional lives. As Maya was discharged from the hospital, Marcus received a text message from an unknown number. "Blackwell knows you're weakening. Final offer coming. Take it if you know what's good for your family." The message confirmed what they both feared. Their private conversations had been monitored, their moment of vulnerability detected. Richard Blackwell was moving in for what he believed would be the kill shot, ready to dictate terms of surrender to an enemy he thought was defeated. Neither Maya nor Marcus spoke on the drive home, each lost in their own thoughts, weighing principles against preservation, justice against peace. The question hanging between them was no longer whether they could win this fight, but whether surviving it would leave anything of their former selves intact. Just as the darkness seemed most impenetrable, light began filtering through from unexpected sources. The first ray came in the form of an encrypted email that arrived in Marcus's secure account from an anonymous sender. "Not everyone at Skyline supports what's happening to your family. Check your secure drop tomorrow. Look for files under Operation Whitewash." Marcus approached the message with caution, wary of traps after weeks of surveillance and intimidation. But when he accessed his company's secure file drop the next day, he found a treasure trove of internal Skyline documents, emails, and meeting recordings that confirmed their worst suspicions and revealed even more disturbing truths. The anonymous whistleblower was James Harrington, a former Skyline executive vice president who had left the company 6 months earlier after clashing with Richard Blackwell over ethical concerns. Now working as a consultant, Harrington had maintained relationships with sympathetic insiders who provided him with evidence of Skyline's systematic discrimination and cover-ups. "I can't be publicly associated with this yet," Harrington explained during their first secure call. "Blackwell would destroy me professionally, but I can't stay silent watching what they're doing to your family and others. What happened to your wife isn't an isolated incident." The documents revealed a pattern of discrimination complaints that had been systematically buried by Skyline's legal department. Most disturbing were the internal emails discussing passenger profile optimization, a euphemism for treating certain demographic groups differently, based on biased assumptions about their value as customers. "This is corporate discrimination by algorithm," Marcus realized as he reviewed the technical specifications. "They've been digitally profiling passengers by race, religion, and apparent socioeconomic status to determine service levels." The revelation transformed their personal fight into something much larger. This wasn't just about one flight attendant's racist behavior or even the corporate cover-up that followed. It was about an institutionalized system of discrimination affecting thousands of passengers who never knew why they received inferior treatment. As Marcus and Maya absorbed this disturbing information, another unexpected ally emerged. Gabriela Rodriguez, one of the nation's most prominent civil rights attorneys, reached out through a mutual connection. What your family is experiencing is textbook corporate intimidation, Gabriella told them during their first meeting at a secure location. I've seen these tactics before from other major companies. They isolate, surveil, threaten, and try to break their opponents psychologically before offering settlement terms that feel like relief, but are actually surrender. When Maya explained their dwindling financial resources and the professional damage they'd already suffered, Gabriella waved away their concerns. I'm taking this case pro bono. What Skyline is doing stretches far beyond one incident of discrimination. This is a pattern of behavior that needs to be exposed through the courts. With Gabriella leading their legal strategy, James Harrington providing insider information, and Marcus's tech team securing their communications, the Reynolds family finally had the beginnings of a support system that could match Skyline's resources. The most powerful development came when Maya's story inspired the formation of the Black Passengers Association, a grassroots organization that quickly gathered hundreds of testimonials from passengers who had experienced similar discrimination on Skyline flights. What had been dismissed as isolated incidents revealed a clear pattern when viewed collectively. Social media platforms that had been weaponized against the Reynolds family became tools for organizing support. Le Sac Stand with Maya trended nationwide, with people sharing their own experiences of discrimination, not just on airlines but in all aspects of daily life. The conversation expanded beyond one incident to address systemic racism in customer service across industries. Jessica Chen, despite continued harassment, strengthened her resolve and connected with other Skyline employees who had witnessed discrimination but feared speaking out. Together, they formed an unofficial employee advocacy group that began documenting ongoing incidents and policy violations. This isn't just about keeping our jobs anymore, Jessica explained during a secure virtual meeting with Maya and the growing legal team. It's about making sure no passenger or employee has to experience what you did. You've given us the courage to finally stand up. Even Zoe Parker, the teenage witness who had recorded the original incident, refused to be silenced. With her parents' support, she launched a youth advocacy campaign encouraging young people to safely document incidents of discrimination they witnessed. You don't have to be an adult to stand against injustice, became her rallying cry, inspiring students across the country. The turning point came when several A-list celebrities who had experienced similar treatment on Skyline flights began speaking out publicly. Their massive platforms amplified the message beyond what Maya and Marcus could have achieved alone, forcing mainstream media outlets to cover the systemic issues rather than treating it as one family's grievance. This isn't about me anymore, Maya realized as she watched the movement grow. This was never really about just me. The expanded visibility and mounting evidence caught the attention of the Department of Transportation, which announced an official investigation into Skyline's treatment of passengers. Unlike internal airline reviews that typically went nowhere, this federal investigation carried the weight of potential regulatory penalties and public accountability. When the announcement hit the news, Richard Blackwell called an emergency board meeting to contain the situation. The pressure from multiple fronts, legal, regulatory, public relations, and financial, had transformed what he had dismissed as a minor customer service issue into an existential threat to the airline's reputation and his own leadership. Meanwhile, James Harrington provided one more critical piece of information. Skyline's leadership had been using corporate resources to pressure regulators into investigating Reynolds' innovations for invented violations, explaining the sudden SEC interest in Marcus's company. They're pulling strings at every level, Harrington confirmed. Blackwell has political connections he's not afraid to use. But now that we know what they're doing, we can counter it. Gabriella immediately filed motions exposing Skyline's interference and requesting that the SEC investigation be reviewed for potential improper influence. The legal counterattack was precise and devastating, forcing Skyline onto the defensive for the first time. As Maya cradled Elijah one evening, watching him sleep peacefully unaware of the battle raging around him, she felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. What had begun as an isolating ordeal had transformed into a movement larger than her family, with allies appearing from unexpected quarters. "We're not alone anymore," she told Marcus as he joined her by the crib. "For the first time, I think we might actually win this." Marcus nodded, his expression still cautious but lighter than it had been in weeks. "It's not just about winning now. It's about changing the system that made this possible in the first place." Have you ever seen how quickly things can change when people unite against injustice? Comment number 1, if you believe in the power of collective action to create change. Or number 2, if you think individual struggles rarely lead to systemic reform. Hit that like button if you feel inspired by allies who risk their own safety to stand with others facing discrimination, and subscribe to see how this growing movement finally confronts Skyline Airlines. When does a personal fight become something bigger than yourself? How powerful can ordinary people become when they refuse to be silenced and find strength in unity? Keep watching as Maya and Marcus discover their most powerful weapon yet against corporate giants who believe themselves untouchable. With the Department of Transportation investigation underway, most corporations would have taken a step back to assess their legal position. Skyline Airlines, under Richard Blackwell's leadership, took the opposite approach. The CEO doubled down, launching a full-scale corporate war against Reynolds Innovations that shocked even veteran business observers with its ruthlessness. "Gentlemen, we're not just fighting a public relations battle anymore," Blackwell told his executive team during a closed-door meeting. "If we allow the Reynolds family to win, we invite every disgruntled passenger to try the same tactics. This is about survival now. I want every connection, every favor, every piece of leverage we have against Reynolds Innovations deployed immediately." Skyline's first strategic attack targeted Marcus's company directly. Through back channels and whisper campaigns, Skyline representatives began contacting Reynolds Innovations' major clients, planting seeds of doubt about the company's stability and reliability. "We're hearing concerning things about Reynolds Innovations," a Skyline board member casually mentioned to the CEO of Global Tech during a charity golf tournament. "Regulatory issues, financial irregularities, nothing public yet, but as a friend I'd advise caution with any long-term contracts." Similar conversations occurred across the business landscape, each carefully calibrated to seem like friendly insider information rather than deliberate sabotage. The impact was devastating. Within days, 3 major clients put their projects with Reynolds Innovations on hold, pending routine review. Marcus watched in disbelief as deals that had been nearly finalized suddenly stalled. "This is coordinated," he told his executive team during an emergency meeting. "They're poisoning the well with everyone we do business with." The financial impact was immediate and severe. Reynolds Innovations' stock price dropped 30% in 2 trading days, as rumors of undisclosed troubles circulated among investors. Market analysts, many with ties to Skyline board members, issued cautious guidance suggesting wait-and-see approaches to the once-favored tech company. "We're bleeding cash," Reynolds Innovations' CFO reported grimly. "At this rate, we'll have to start layoffs within weeks just to maintain operational stability." The first round of layoffs hit like a physical blow. 28 employees, many who had been with the company since its early days, had to be let go as projects were postponed or canceled. Marcus personally delivered the news, taking responsibility for the situation while being legally unable to fully explain the forces working against them. "I've failed them," he told Maya that evening, his voice hollow with defeat. "These people trusted me with their livelihoods, and I couldn't protect them." As Reynolds Innovations struggled, Skyline escalated further by activating high-level political and regulatory connections. Suddenly, Marcus's company faced routine audits from 3 different government agencies, each requiring extensive documentation and executive time. The coordinated regulatory scrutiny was technically legal, but clearly orchestrated to drain resources and create the appearance of impropriety. The most damaging blow came when private investigators hired by Skyline uncovered a minor tax filing discrepancy from Reynolds Innovations' early days. The issue involved a research and development tax credit claimed 10 years earlier that might have been slightly overcalculated. Under normal circumstances, it would have warranted a simple amendment and possible small penalty. Skyline made sure the circumstance was anything but normal. Through carefully placed leaks to financial media, the decade-old tax matter morphed into potential tax fraud and systemic financial irregularities. Business publications that should have known better ran sensationalized headlines questioning Reynolds Innovations' financial integrity. When the Securities and Exchange Commission announced they were opening an investigation into Reynolds Innovations' financial practices, Marcus knew exactly who had pulled the strings to make it happen. The investigation itself might eventually clear the company, but the damage to their reputation would be immediate and possibly irreparable. "They're using every lever of power to destroy us," Marcus told Gabriela Rodriguez during an emergency legal team meeting. "This isn't about the incident on the plane anymore. This is Blackwell sending a message to anyone who might challenge Skyline in the future." Gabriela nodded grimly. "This is corporate warfare at its ugliest. They're betting that you'll break before they do." That evening, Richard Blackwell made what he considered his checkmate move. Through intermediaries, he presented Maya and Marcus with a final settlement offer. $10 million to drop all claims, sign comprehensive non-disclosure agreements, and withdraw all support from others pursuing action against Skyline. The offer came with an unspoken but crystal-clear ultimatum: take the money and walk away, or watch Reynolds Innovations be systematically dismantled until nothing remained. As Maya and Marcus considered the offer in their temporary apartment, surrounded by security systems that couldn't protect them from the most damaging attacks, the weight of the choice before them felt crushing. $10 million would allow them to start over somewhere new, perhaps even outside the country. They could rebuild their lives away from the surveillance, threats, and corporate vendettas. "Maybe we should take it," Marcus said quietly, watching Elijah play on the floor, blissfully unaware of the forces arrayed against his family. "Not for us, but for him. For the people who work for me who didn't sign up for this fight." Maya was silent for a long moment, her eyes fixed on their son. The fight had taken everything from them: her medical practice, their home, their privacy, their sense of security. Even their marriage had been strained to near breaking. Was any principle worth this continuing toll? Yet something in her rejected surrender. Perhaps it was the memory of her grandmother who had marched for civil rights in the 1960s, facing fire hoses and police dogs. Perhaps it was thinking of Jessica Chen and others who had risked their own security to stand with them. Or perhaps it was simply the knowledge that Skyline would continue its discriminatory practices against countless other passengers, if not forced to change. "If we take the money," she finally said, "we save ourselves at the cost of everyone else. They'll hurt in the future. Is that a price we're willing to pay?" The question hung between them unanswered as they weighed their family's immediate welfare against the broader principles that had guided their lives. There seemed to be no path forward that didn't require unbearable sacrifice, no way to protect both their family and their integrity. Richard Blackwell had engineered a perfect trap, forcing them to choose between survival and justice. As the clock ticked toward the settlement offer's deadline, Maya and Marcus faced the hardest decision of their lives, knowing that whatever they chose would irrevocably shape not just their future, but potentially the futures of countless others who would face similar battles against corporate power. The morning after receiving Skyline's final settlement offer, Maya woke to devastating news. Her mother called, voice breaking, to inform her that grandmother Josephine had passed away peacefully in her sleep. Maya had missed her chance to say goodbye. "She was asking for you yesterday," her mother said gently. "She understood why you couldn't be here more, sweetheart. She was so proud of you for standing up for yourself." The words were meant as comfort, but struck Maya like physical blows. While she had been fighting Skyline, precious final moments with her grandmother had slipped away forever. The grief hit her with unexpected force, collapsing the careful compartmentalization that had kept her functioning through weeks of crisis. "I should have been there," she sobbed after hanging up. "I was so caught up in this battle that I missed what really mattered." Marcus held her as she cried, his own guilt mounting. Had their principled stand been worth this price? The question haunted him as he watched his wife grieve not just for her grandmother, but for all they had lost in their fight against Skyline. The funeral arrangements created a new security challenge. Returning to Atlanta would make Maya vulnerable. Yet, nothing could keep her from saying her final goodbye. As Marcus coordinated with their security team, another blow landed. Gabriela Rodriguez discovered definitive proof that Skyline had orchestrated the SEC investigation. They didn't just make a complaint, Gabriela explained, showing them documents obtained through legal discovery. Blackwell personally contacted the SEC commissioner, who happens to be a former Skyline board member. This goes beyond corporate pressure tactics into potential legal corruption. The revelation should have energized them, providing ammunition for their fight, but Maya received it with hollow detachment. She was emotionally depleted, grief compounding the stress of months under siege. The day before the funeral, Jessica Chen called with her own crisis. Her home had been vandalized with racist graffiti, windows shattered, and threatening messages left that specifically mentioned her support of the Reynolds family. "I'm scared," she admitted, her usual composure cracking. "But I won't back down. They can't intimidate all of us into silence." These words, spoken with such conviction despite Jessica's obvious fear, stirred something in Maya. Here was a woman who had risked everything to stand for truth, who continued to fight despite facing the same intimidation tactics that had nearly broken Maya's own spirit. Before Maya could fully process this renewed sense of purpose, Zoe Parker's parents reached out through their attorney. The teenage witness who had recorded the original incident had recanted her story under intense pressure. Anonymous callers had threatened her college prospects, her family's safety, and her future. After weeks of harassment, the 16-year-old had given a tearful statement claiming she had misunderstood what happened on the flight. Hours later, however, Zoe secretly contacted Maya through an encrypted message. "I'm sorry I took back my statement. They scared my parents with threats about my safety, but I know what I saw and recorded. The original video is still the truth. I'll find a way to make this right." The courage of this young woman facing threats yet still determined to stand for truth further awakened Maya from her grief-induced numbness. Meanwhile, Marcus faced his own crisis at Reynolds Innovations as the company's financial situation became critical. "We have enough runway for maybe 2 more months, his CFO informed him during a grim meeting. "After that, without new contracts or investment, we'll have to consider more drastic measures." The pressure to accept Skyline's settlement offer mounted with each passing day. That evening, the stress erupted into the first serious fight of their marriage. What began as a strategy discussion devolved into raw emotion, as months of fear, anger, and resentment broke through their carefully maintained united front. "You're so obsessed with winning this fight that you can't see what it's costing us," Maya shouted, weeks of pent-up frustration boiling over. "My grandmother died while we were busy playing corporate warfare. Your employees are losing their jobs. Our son barely knows his own home. When is enough, Marcus?" "You think I don't see the cost?" Marcus fired back, equally hurt. "I see it every day. But what's the alternative? Let them win? Let them keep doing this to other families? Take their blood money and pretend none of this happened? Maybe that's exactly what we should do." Maya's voice broke. "Maybe survival is more important than principles right now. Maybe living to fight another day is the best we can hope for." They argued late into the night, each giving voice to doubts they had previously hidden from each other. The fight exposed the fractures in their relationship that months of pressure had created, leaving them both emotionally raw and uncertain. With the settlement deadline looming the next morning, they went to bed without resolution, the chasm between them feeling wider than ever before. For the first time since the ordeal began, they questioned whether their marriage would survive even if they somehow won against Skyline. Maya tossed and turned, grief over her grandmother mingling with anger at Marcus and the impossible situation they faced. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went to check on Elijah. Watching her son's peaceful breathing, she felt a wave of protectiveness so powerful it almost overwhelmed her. What kind of world would he grow up in if corporations could bully families into silence? What message would accepting Skyline's money send to him about standing up for what's right? Yet what future could she provide if their fight left them financially ruined and professionally blacklisted? The next morning, Maya woke feeling ill. The stress had manifested physically with nausea and dizziness that she initially attributed to grief and lack of sleep. As a doctor, however, she recognized that her symptoms warranted attention, especially given her recent collapse. A quick, home test provided an answer she never expected. Maya was pregnant with their second child. The discovery hit her with the force of revelation. This fight wasn't just about the past anymore, the discrimination she had faced, the reputation they had lost. It was about the future they were creating for both their children. When Marcus woke, he found Maya sitting on the edge of their bed, the positive test in her hand. Their argument from the night before seemed suddenly small in the face of this new life, this renewed purpose. "We're having another baby," she said simply, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. Marcus stared at the test, then at his wife, the implications washing over him. Without a word, he wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if she might vanish. The embrace contained everything they couldn't yet put into words. Apology, forgiveness, renewed determination. "This changes everything," he finally said. Maya nodded against his shoulder. "It puts everything in perspective. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore, we never were. We're fighting for them, for the world they'll grow up in." The settlement deadline came and went without response from the Reynolds family. Richard Blackwell, confident in his strategy of escalating pressure, interpreted their silence as weakness rather than renewed resolve. He had no way of knowing that in their darkest hour, Maya and Marcus had found the light that would guide them through to the end, whatever the cost. Instead of breaking them, Skyline's relentless attacks had forged a deeper purpose. The question was no longer whether they would fight or surrender, but how they would win a battle that seemed impossibly stacked against them. As they prepared for grandmother Josephine's funeral, they recommitted to each other and to the principles that had started their journey, with the added knowledge that they were fighting not just for justice in the present, but for the future their children would inherit. While Maya traveled to Atlanta for her grandmother's funeral under the protection of a security detail, Marcus made a stunning discovery that would change the entire trajectory of their battle with Skyline. The revelation came not through their legal team or whistleblowers, but through Marcus's own technology. Reynolds Innovations' core product was an advanced data security system that recorded and encrypted all communications passing through client networks. The system had been designed to protect against data breaches and provide recovery options in case of cyber attacks. As part of the contract negotiation with Skyline, Marcus's team had installed a pilot version on Skyline's executive communication systems for testing purposes 3 months earlier. "We never turned it off," Marcus realized while reviewing the contract details. After the incident with Maya, everything moved so quickly that the system remained active, recording everything on their executive servers as part of the testing phase. Marcus immediately convened a meeting with his top engineers and legal counsel. "I need to know exactly what our system captured and whether it's legally admissible," he instructed. "This could change everything." The team worked through the night, carefully extracting and analyzing the encrypted data. What they found exceeded their wildest expectations. The system had captured emails, video conferences, and internal communications between Skyline executives discussing not just Maya's incident, but the coordinated cover-up and retaliatory campaign that followed. In one particularly damning video conference, Richard Blackwell could be clearly seen instructing his team to make the Reynolds family regret ever challenging us, and explicitly authorizing the use of private investigators to find whatever dirt you can on Maya's medical practice. Another recording caught Skyline's head of legal affairs warning, "What we're doing here goes beyond aggressive defense into potentially illegal territory," only to be overruled by Blackwell, who responded, "I don't care what lines we have to cross. This ends on my terms, not theirs." Most shocking were the communications revealing Blackwell's direct interference with government agencies, including the SEC, using political connections to trigger investigations into Reynolds Innovations based on manufactured concerns. "Is this legally admissible?" Marcus asked his attorneys, hardly daring to hope. After careful review, their legal team confirmed what seemed too good to be true. The pilot program was installed with Skyline's full knowledge and consent as part Of the pre-contract testing, the lead counsel explained. The agreement they signed explicitly permits data collection during the testing phase to evaluate system performance. They never asked us to terminate the test, and we never affirmatively represented that we had done so. Essentially, Skyline had legally consented to having their communications recorded, never realizing the system would capture their own illegal activities in real time. It was the corporate equivalent of confessing into a live microphone without realizing the sound was being broadcast. This changes everything, Gabriela Rodriguez confirmed, when Marcus securely shared the findings. This isn't just evidence of discrimination against Maya. This documents a conspiracy to cover up systemic discrimination, corporate espionage, witness intimidation, and potentially criminal interference with federal agencies. Maya, returning from the emotionally draining funeral, was initially cautious. They had experienced too many false hopes to celebrate prematurely. We need to be strategic about how we use this, she warned. If Blackwell realizes what we have before we've fully leveraged it, he'll use every resource to discredit or suppress the evidence. Together with their expanded legal team, Maya and Marcus developed a careful plan. Rather than immediately exposing everything they had discovered, they would use the evidence surgically where it would create maximum impact. Their first move targeted the SEC investigation that was crippling Reynolds Innovations. Using the recordings of Blackwell discussing his manipulation of the agency through political connections, they filed a formal complaint with the SEC Inspector General, alleging corruption and improper influence in the investigation's origins. The effect was immediate. The SEC investigation was placed on hold pending an internal review, and Reynolds Innovations' stock price stabilized for the first time in weeks. More importantly, the company's existing clients, reassured that the investigation had been politically motivated rather than based on actual concerns, began re-engaging on paused projects. Next, they provided specific evidence to Department of Transportation investigators showing how Skyline executives had discussed ways to bury discrimination complaints and manipulate internal data to hide patterns of biased treatment. This accelerated the federal investigation, expanding its scope beyond Maya's individual case to examine potential systemic civil rights violations across the airline's operations. As these strategic moves began yielding results, Richard Blackwell remained surprisingly confident. Unaware of the recordings, he interpreted the changing tide as random setbacks rather than orchestrated counterattacks. Convinced that his final settlement offer had weakened the Reynolds family's resolve, he pushed forward with finalizing the $400 million contract with Reynolds Innovations' competitors, believing that this final blow to Marcus's company would end the battle on his terms. Schedule the signing ceremony for next Friday, he instructed his team during what he believed was a secure video conference. I want maximum publicity. This needs to send a message about what happens to companies that cross Skyline. This overconfidence created the opening Maya and Marcus had been waiting for. With Blackwell focused on the contract signing spectacle, they put their final plan into motion. Marcus formally requested an emergency meeting with Skyline's full board of directors and executive leadership team, ostensibly to make one last attempt at resolving the situation before the contract with their competitor was finalized. Blackwell, believing this request signaled surrender, eagerly agreed. He anticipated the satisfaction of watching Marcus Reynolds beg for mercy before rejecting any compromise and proceeding with his victory lap. It never occurred to him that he was walking into a carefully set trap. As Maya prepared to face Victoria Whitehall and the Skyline leadership who had tried to destroy her family, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. What had begun as a simple request for warm water for her baby's formula had escalated into a battle that exposed corporate corruption, systemic discrimination, and the lengths powerful entities would go to silence those who challenged them. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked the night before the meeting, holding her close as they both contemplated the confrontation ahead. Maya thought about grandmother Josephine, whose funeral had reminded her of the generations of struggle that had come before her. She thought about Jessica Chen and other Skyline employees who had risked everything to stand with them. She thought about Zoe Parker, a teenager who had shown more courage than many adults. Most of all, she thought about Elijah and the new life growing inside her, Children who would inherit the world shaped by battles like this one. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," she answered, her voice steady with the calm that comes from absolute clarity of purpose. As they finalized preparations late into the night, Marcus received one last piece of intelligence from their sources within Skyline. Richard Blackwell, still believing he held all the cards, had invited major media to cover what he was calling a resolution to the controversy. Cameras would be present to document what he expected to be his moment of triumph. "Perfect," Maya said when Marcus shared this information. "Let's make sure they capture every moment of what's about to happen." The stage was set for a confrontation that would not only determine the fate of one family's fight for justice, but potentially transform how corporations handled discrimination claims forever. After months of being reactive, Maya and Marcus had finally seized control of the narrative. Now they needed to deliver the final blow with such force that Skyline, and every corporation watching, would never forget the lesson. The Skyline corporate headquarters gleamed in the morning sunlight, its glass and steel facade projecting an image of transparency and modern efficiency that belied the corrupt practices within. Maya and Marcus arrived 15 minutes early for the 10 a.m. meeting, accompanied by Gabriela Rodriguez and a small team of attorneys. The security guards, recognizing Marcus from his previous visits during contract negotiations, nodded them through with barely concealed curiosity. In the executive elevator ascending to the top-floor boardroom, Maya smoothed her impeccably tailored navy suit, armor for the battle ahead. "Remember," Gabriela advised quietly, "no matter what happens in there, we control the narrative now." The boardroom doors opened to reveal a carefully orchestrated scene. 20 of Skyline's most senior executives and board members sat in a horseshoe formation, with Richard Blackwell at the center, flanked by corporate counsel. At 62, Blackwell maintained the confident posture of a man accustomed to winning. His calculated smile suggested he viewed this meeting as a formality before his final victory. "Marcus, Dr. Reynolds," he greeted them with artificial warmth. "Thank you for requesting this meeting. I believe we all want to find a resolution that allows everyone to move forward." Several news cameras discreetly positioned at the back of the room captured the exchange. Blackwell had arranged media presence expecting to document the Reynolds family's capitulation. Instead, he had provided them the perfect audience for what was about to unfold. Marcus nodded politely but remained standing rather than taking the offered seats. "Before we begin, I'd like to clarify who's joining us today." He turned to the door as it opened again. Richard Blackwell's smile faltered as Jessica Chen entered, followed by 5 other current and former Skyline employees. Most shocking was the appearance of Victoria Whitehall herself, the flight attendant from Maya's original ordeal, looking considerably less confident than during their first encounter. "What is the meaning of this?" Blackwell demanded, half rising from his seat. "This meeting was agreed to be between leadership teams only." "Actually," Marcus replied calmly, "our confirmation email specified we would bring relevant witnesses. These individuals have first-hand knowledge of the matters we're discussing today." Before Blackwell could object further, Marcus connected his secure laptop to the boardroom's presentation system. "I believe a comprehensive review of the facts will help frame our discussion productively." The screen illuminated with video of Maya's original encounter with Victoria Whitehall on the flight, capturing with perfect clarity the flight attendant's dismissive treatment and, most damning, the racial slur whispered, but clearly audible, in the enhanced audio. Several board members visibly recoiled at the language. One older woman removed her glasses, her expression shifting from skepticism to concern. "This incident was unfortunate," Blackwell interjected quickly. "We've addressed it internally with the employee in question. As we've stated repeatedly, it does not reflect Skyline's values or policies." "That's an interesting claim," Marcus continued smoothly, advancing to the next screen, "because our evidence suggests otherwise." What followed was a methodically organized presentation of the recordings captured by Reynolds Innovation's security system during its testing phase. Email after email, meeting after meeting, displayed on screen with damning clarity. Skyline executives explicitly discussing how to discredit Maya, authorize surveillance of their family, pressure Marcus's clients to abandon Reynolds' innovations, and manipulate regulatory agencies to launch investigations. Most devastating was the video of Blackwell himself instructing his team to make an example of the Reynolds family, explicitly stating that allowing a discrimination claim to succeed would open the floodgates to similar complaints that would cost the airline millions. As the evidence mounted, the atmosphere in the boardroom transformed. Board members exchanged alarmed glances. Several executives physically distanced themselves from Blackwell, subtle body language that spoke volumes about their sudden desire to dissociate from his actions. "These recordings are clearly edited," Blackwell attempted, his voice lacking its usual authority. "Possibly even fabricated. They would never be admissible in any legal proceeding." "Actually," Gabriella interjected smoothly, "they're completely admissible. Your company signed an explicit consent to system testing as part of the contract negotiation process. Every recording has been authenticated by independent digital forensics experts, with blockchain verification of timestamps and content integrity. But if you doubt their authenticity, we've prepared sworn affidavits from participants in these meetings confirming their accuracy." Jessica Chen stepped forward, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "I was present for many of these conversations. I can testify under oath that these recordings accurately represent what was discussed and decided by Skyline leadership following Dr. Reynolds' complaint." One by one, the other Skyline employees confirmed specific instances of discrimination they had witnessed or been instructed to implement. Their testimony painted a picture not of isolated incidents, but of systematic bias encoded in both formal and informal company policies. As the presentation continued, Maya studied the board, members' reactions. Several appeared genuinely horrified by what they were learning, suggesting they had been kept in the dark about the extent of Blackwell's tactics. Others seemed more concerned with the legal and financial implications than the ethical breaches. But even they recognized the indefensible nature of what they were witnessing. When the evidence portion concluded, Maya finally stepped forward to address the room. The boardroom fell silent as she took center stage, all eyes fixed on the woman, whose simple request for help with her baby had exposed a corporation's rotting core. "I stand before you not just as Dr. Maya Reynolds, but as a representative of countless passengers who have been demeaned, dismissed, and discriminated against by Skyline Airlines," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. "What happened to me on that flight was not an aberration or the actions of one prejudiced employee. It was the predictable result of a culture that views certain passengers as less deserving of basic human dignity than others." She moved around the table slowly, making eye contact with each board member as she continued. "I could have accepted your settlement. $10 million is a life-changing sum designed to purchase my silence. But dignity cannot be bought, and justice cannot be confined by non-disclosure agreements." Maya paused beside Victoria Whitehall, who refused to meet her gaze. Ms. Whitehall's actions were reprehensible, but they were enabled and protected by leadership that viewed discrimination as acceptable collateral damage in pursuit of profit. "When I dared to speak out, instead of addressing the problem, your company chose to attack my professional reputation, threaten my family's safety, and attempt to destroy my husband's business." Returning to the front of the room, Maya's voice gained strength. "Every human being deserves to be treated with basic dignity and respect, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. That principle is not negotiable, not for $10 million, not for any amount." As Maya concluded her powerful testimony, the boardroom door opened once more. A young woman entered hesitantly, immediately recognizable as Zoe Parker, the teenager who had recorded the original incident. Though only 16, she carried herself with remarkable poise as she addressed the stunned executives. "I recanted my statement because men claiming to represent Skyline threaten my college future and my family's safety," she stated, her voice initially shaking but growing steadier with each word. "But I can't live with that lie. The video I recorded shows exactly what happened, and I'm prepared to testify to its accuracy in any court or hearing." With the cumulative weight of evidence and testimony rendering further denials impossible, Marcus delivered the coup de grace. From his briefcase, He removed the contract that would have solidified the $400 million partnership between Reynolds Innovations and Skyline Airlines. As cameras captured the moment, he methodically tore the thick document into pieces, letting the fragments fall onto the polished boardroom table. Skyline Airlines had an opportunity to partner with Reynolds Innovations to modernize your passenger experience systems, he said evenly. Instead, you chose to wage war against my family for having the audacity to expect basic human dignity. That is not a company we will ever do business with. The symbolic destruction of the contract sent a visible shockwave through the room. For board members focused primarily on fiduciary duty, the loss of a deal that had been anticipated to boost stock values significantly was perhaps more shocking than the ethical breaches. Richard Blackwell, his carefully cultivated image of invincible corporate leadership crumbling before the cameras, attempted one last deflection. These are serious allegations that require proper investigation through appropriate channels. This public spectacle serves no constructive purpose. On the contrary, Maya countered, transparency serves a vital purpose. Every airline passenger deserves to know how Skyline views and treats people who look like me. Every investor deserves to know the ethical standards of leadership making decisions about their investments. Every employee deserves to know the values of the company they serve. With perfect timing, Gabriela Rodriguez added, to facilitate that transparency, we've prepared detailed evidence packages for the Department of Justice, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. We believe these materials will support investigations into potential violations of civil rights laws, securities regulations, and witness tampering statutes. The choreographed delivery of this final blow left no doubt that the Reynolds family had transformed from victims to architects of Skyline's reckoning. As the implications sank in, Eleanor Hamilton, the senior board member who had earlier seemed disturbed by the recordings, broke ranks. As the longest-serving member of this board, she announced, rising to her feet, I move for an emergency executive session to discuss leadership transition, effective immediately. The conduct we've witnessed today represents an unacceptable breach of our fiduciary duty and ethical obligations. One by one, other board members voiced their support for the motion, their corporate self-preservation instincts kicking in as they distanced themselves from Blackwell's sinking leadership. The CEO, whose arrogance had seemed impenetrable just an hour earlier, now sat isolated, his carefully constructed power structure collapsing in real time. As the meeting dissolved into chaos, Maya and Marcus departed with their team, leaving Skyline's leadership to confront the consequences of their actions under the unforgiving gaze of the media cameras they had themselves invited. Outside the building, bathed in midday sunlight, Maya took a deep breath of freedom, the first she had experienced in months. What now? She asked Marcus as they walked toward their waiting car, photographers capturing their dignified exit. Now we rebuild, he answered simply. But not just our lives. Something bigger. 6 months later, Maya stood at a podium in Washington, D.C., her pregnancy now visibly advanced, addressing a congressional hearing on corporate accountability and consumer rights. Beside her sat Jessica Chen, who had become a pivotal voice in the movement to transform how airlines treated passengers. The Reynolds Foundation for Corporate Accountability begins from a simple premise, Maya testified. Powerful entities must be held responsible when they abuse that power. Our initial focus on airline passenger rights has already resulted in the Airline Passenger Dignity Act, currently before this committee. But our mission extends to all industries where consumers face systematic discrimination or mistreatment. The foundation, funded initially by Maya and Marcus's personal resources and later by broad public support, had quickly become a formidable advocate for corporate responsibility. Their technological expertise combined with legal advocacy created a powerful force for transparency and accountability. Skyline Airlines had undergone a complete leadership overhaul. Richard Blackwell had resigned in disgrace 1 week after the boardroom confrontation, later facing personal liability in multiple lawsuits and regulatory investigations. Victoria Whitehall had been terminated, along with executives who had participated in the retaliatory campaign against the Reynolds family. Most significantly, the Department of Justice investigation had revealed patterns of discrimination affecting thousands of passengers. resulting in a historic settlement that required Skyline to completely restructure its training, complaint, procedures, and accountability systems. As Maya concluded her congressional testimony, she reflected on the journey that had transformed a moment of personal humiliation into a movement for systemic change. What Skyline had never understood was that their greatest mistake wasn't discriminating against one passenger. It was choosing to fight a family with the resources, resilience, and moral clarity to stand not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever been silenced by corporate power. Elijah, now 10 months old, watched from the audience in Marcus's arms as his mother helped reshape the laws that would protect his future rights. Beside them sat Zoe Parker, whose college education would be fully funded by a Reynolds Foundation scholarship, and Jessica Chen, recently appointed as Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Skyline's largest competitor. The battle had cost the Reynolds family dearly: professional disruption, personal trauma, and months of their lives under siege. But in forcing them to fight with everything they had, Skyline had inadvertently created something far more powerful than one family seeking justice. They had catalyzed a movement that would long outlive the controversy that sparked it, ensuring that corporations everywhere would think twice before dismissing discrimination as simply the cost of doing business. As Maya often reminded those who asked about her ordeal, justice wasn't just about punishing wrongdoers. It was about creating systems where dignity and respect were guaranteed to everyone, regardless of who they were or what they looked like. The warm water she had requested for her baby's formula had ultimately ignited a flame that would warm the prospects of justice for countless others to come. The story of Maya and Marcus Reynolds teaches us several powerful lessons about courage, systemic change, and the true nature of justice. First, it demonstrates that individual acts of discrimination are rarely isolated incidents, but often symptoms of deeper institutional problems. What began as one flight attendant's prejudiced behavior revealed an entire corporate culture that enabled and protected discrimination. Second, the narrative highlights the immense power imbalance between corporations and individuals. Skyline. Airlines used their vast resources to intimidate, surveil, and attempt to destroy the Reynolds family professionally and personally. This reflects how systems of power operate in real life, making it exceptionally difficult for individuals to seek justice. Third, the story emphasizes that meaningful change requires collective action. Maya and Marcus could not have succeeded alone. Their victory depended on whistleblowers like James Harrington, witnesses like Zoe Parker, allies like Jessica Chen, and legal experts like Gabriela Rodriguez. When people unite against injustice, they become far more powerful than any single corporation. Fourth, the Reynolds family's journey underscores the personal cost of standing against systemic injustice. They faced surveillance, threats, professional sabotage, and emotional trauma. The price of their principles was extraordinarily high, a reality many activists and whistleblowers know all too well. Perhaps most importantly, this story teaches us that real victory isn't measured just in personal vindication, but in systemic transformation. The Reynolds family could have accepted Skyline's settlement offer and secured their own comfort, but they chose instead to fight for changes that would protect countless future passengers from similar discrimination. Their foundation transformed a personal injury into a lasting movement for corporate accountability and human dignity. This reminds us that justice isn't simply about punishing wrongdoers. It's about creating systems where everyone is treated with equal respect regardless of their race, gender, or background. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wondered if speaking up could really make a difference? Or have you experienced prejudice firsthand and felt powerless against a system designed to silence your voice? The Reynolds family's journey shows us that standing up for what's right, no matter how difficult, can create ripples of change far beyond what we imagine. Comment below with a time you stood up against injustice, or share what you would have done in Maya's situation. Type dignity for all if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with basic human respect regardless of their race or background. If this story moved you, please hit that like button to help more people see it. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories about everyday heroes fighting against discrimination and creating positive change in the world. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their voice matters in the fight for equality. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey. Remember, as Maya Reynolds proved, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is refuse to accept injustice, even when standing up comes at great personal cost. Together, we can create a world where dignity is not a privilege for some, but a right for all.